I want to apologize that that video ended. I had no idea that it ended. I talked for another frickin' 15 minutes. And told some. I thought I got to remember what the hell I was talking about. I think I left the video off at I was with this collector in the car driving up Cicero. It's all right. We just got 25 inches of snow. I put that video up the other day, yesterday or this morning, but I taped it yesterday. We just got like this much snow. So I've been shoveling all day. I'm exhausted. Anyway, coming up Cicero Avenue on the south side. Coming up and I have this collector Bill with me from the south. We're coming up and he used to, like I said earlier in the other video, part one, he always would blow me shit about like, Terry, all the drums are up there. And I told the stories how you'd have to go out and you'd go like every 10 places you went to where there was supposedly a great set, 1 out of 10 was a good one. In the days before cell phones and computers, you'd have to physically drive out on the safari to get it, Anyway, so we're driving up and I'm just like, and at one point I looked over at him, we're driving up Cicero and it took, it's like 4:30 on a Thursday, right? I mean, it takes forever in big cities. If you're not from a big city, sometimes in traffic it can take you like an hour at rush hour to go like a mile. And I'm not talking about really heavy necessarily, even if there's an accident in the expressway and you're just going like bumper to bumper. I'm talking about like in just side streets and stuff. It's crazy town. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, I look over at him and he's practically hung himself in the passenger seat of this rented van we had. Oh, and I do remember on that trip too, he came up. He was from Georgia. He came up. And I remember he brought a trailer. And we were going to the Chicago Drum Show. I think I first started going to the Chicago Drum Show. The very first one they had out in Kane County. They had one or two, I think one downtown and then one maybe at like the Holiday Inn and Hillside where they shot part of the Blues Brothers. They see Murph and the Magic Tones. That's at the Hillside frickin' Holiday Inn. Anyway, so I remember when he came, he's like, all right, Terry, we'll go. And he's like, hey, you interested in a drum? I was like, sure, what do you got? And he opens his trailer up. And he pulls out a 16 by 18 inch Ludwig 60s Keystone badge Black Galaxy floor tom. Great shape. You can see the pink and the green specs. It's like, if you want it, Terry, I'll give it for $200. I'm thinking to myself, like, God, and I kind of knew about Black Galaxy, and I'm like, God, where the hell am I going to find a Black Galaxy set? I'm like, sorry, I should have just bought it from for $200. I didn't. I passed on it. Go to the drum show, hey, this might have been like 1997 or 8 maybe. And, of course, he probably took the 6.5 by 14 Ludlow Supra. The Keystone badge one probably sold it for $400 out there. Anyway, so I pass on the drum, right? A week later, this is always how it is. Every vintage drum guy in the whole world tell you, gal or whoever. I go into the music go-round. Oh, there's a lot of stories there, too. There used to be a lot of music around Chicago. Maybe there's none anymore. Anyhow, go into the music around, and there is sitting a 22, 13, 16 Black Galaxy. Dirty and all crusty, nickel-plated lugs and stuff. Like, how much you want from me? Give me $200. That's what I called Bill back. Hey, you still got that floor top? No. Anyway, bought the Black Galaxies anyway, fixed them up. Put chrome hearts on them, had them for a year or two, and then sold them to some guy, nice guy in Chicago here, sort of a very popular, kind of a famous, well, I don't know what he does now, but anyway. So, the music around was always good for stuff. But yeah, so, Snusk, real fast about Snusk. This place, and every city seems to have a place like this. Like, I know in Milwaukee there was Faust Drums that fell up there, he passed away. These businesses, these music stores, in those days, I think before like Guitar Center and stuff, I'm going to have me a non-alcoholic beer. Old Milwaukee, N.A. It looks exactly like an Old Milwaukee if you didn't see that N.A. But I just don't drink alcohol anymore. Just because it's better for you not to. At least for me. But I encourage drinking if you can. But every city seemed to have a Faust or a Wallace Music. Wallace Music, that reminds me. Place up on North Avenue. You go in there. Anyway, these places, forgive me, I've been out shoveling for decades. I'm sopping wet. You'd go in there, and they were so used to, over the years, I think, charging full price for everything. Before, like, Guitar Center and, rock and roll really came along, and a lot of competition for business for drums and guitars and stuff. They probably just charged full retail everything for, like, they raked in the cash, let's just say. So suddenly, in later years, you have people like me come in and say, "Hey, do you have any old sparkly drums in the basement?" The guy behind the counter would be like, he'd either be like, "Screw you," or he'd say, "Yeah," and he'd show you like a blue sparkle Ludwig 70 set, and you want like $10,000 for it. But I got him one time. I remember one time, and I'll make this fast. I got to add in the video, but this is kind of a good story. I used to work at a high school in a village outside Oak Park. And whenever one of the junior highs would come to put a show on in the high school auditorium, I cleaned the auditoriums. I remember the drums would be up on stage, and it was I think it was a Rogers, if I'm not mistaken, a gold sparkle Rogers set maybe, like a 2012 16. I think, or Champagne it was. Anyway, the snare drum they'd always bring in was a 6.5 by 14 Ludaloy, like a 1966 Supra. Back in those days, I think the people who used to always pretty much buy the 6.5 versions were like junior highs and high schools, because it was like an orchestra drum, right? Until like a lot of other guys, like the rock guys and Bonham and everybody started playing the deeper Supras, Anyway, so I always thought to myself, God, I gotta get my hands on that Supra, And then one day there was a parade coming down the street. My sister, there's a parade, same junior high. There's all the bands are out there and it's all rocking. And sure enough, here comes a truck that's like, I forget the name, it's in one of the towns, blah, 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 junior high. And there's a drummer up there playing. I see the Champagne Sparkle Rogers. And I go kind of running up the truck and I look, and sure enough, there's a 6.5 by 14 Keystone badged Superphonic. But as it's going by, I noticed that the Keystone badge is a little lower, like right off the bead, which is a surefire. Ludwig changed the location of where they put the badge. Sometimes, very rarely, you'll see a 6.5 by 14 chrome over brass, early 60s, Super Ludwig, with the badge in the higher position, but much more often than not, it'll be resting just above the. So I look at it, I'm like, oh my God, that's a brass one. They must have more. They had a Ludaloy one, now they got a brass one. So I run down at the end of the parade, I'm like, literally, I ran. I'm like sopping wet. It's Memorial Day. Like, hi, you're the band director? Yeah. I'm like, hey, my name's Terry. I play around. But, I'm looking for drums. I said, you have, and I point the drum out to him. He's like, yeah, we have 2 of those. I'm like, I'd like to buy them from you. Buy them from me if you could, or if I could. So I'm like, he's like, well, we just really, if you could just want to replace them. And I'm like, he's like, we really like the Ludwig drums. He essentially said to me, if you can replace them with 6.5 by 14 Ludwig snare drums, I'll give you these. So I did the math in my head. At that time, I think brand new Ludwig Superphonic 6.5s might have gone for, in 97 or 8, you might have been able to pick them up for like $340, maybe, I think. So I was like, I did the math. I'm like, whatever. So anyway, so I go up to Wall's Music, and I'd gone into Wall's a bunch of times, sort of. Look around. So you got any old stuff in here? And they'd be like, and the guy'd sort of eyeball you, and he had like an old Rogers banner and stuff. So anyway, finally, I said, I just pulled it out of my ass. I said, you know what, Mr. Wallace? I said, I have some students that are looking for some 6.5 by 14 Superphonics. Do you have any? And I pull my money out. See, that's the key. You got to pull cash out. I had cash in my hand. I was like. Stack of, I had a pretty good job at the time. I had some money, Sees the cash. Okay, sure. Runs, he's gone. I'm like, oh, that was easy, Comes up, and I'd asked for 2. I think I'd asked for 2. No, I'd asked for 3. I did ask for, why did I ask for, a buddy of mine, a friend of mine was looking for 1. Anyway, so he comes up, and he's got 3 Ludwig Superphonics, all blue olive badge. So this is 1997. In 1997, believe it or not, 70s stuff wasn't really all that popular yet. It was kind of coming up. The pointy, early 70s stuff kind of was. So one of them was new in the bag. It was like a 1980. In the bag, it had the yellow envelope that said Ludwig and the drum key, right? The other 2 were just, had been used, but weren't pitted or anything. Just nice, clean, would go for $1 trillion, or at least in the past few years, go for a lot of money. Blue and olives. He's like, well, these are $200 a piece. After like East got out of his mouth, these are like I was like, I had like $600 in my hand. I was like, here you go. Fine, sir. No tax, nothing. Cash out the door. Grab the drums. March out the door. Go down to this junior high. Sir, how are you? Terry Keating here. Great to see you. Okay, what do you think of these guys? Perfect. Great. Here are yours. There are mine. Thank you so much. Get the hell out of there. And then I actually kept the one that was in the bag, and I sold it to a drummer buddy of mine, who actually I think still has it. I might have just sold it. But, yeah, that was kind of a funny story. Yeah, so one chrome over brass, and then a Ludlow. And then, there was one more story I was going to tell in the drum department, which was kind of wacky. Oh, yeah. This is a freaking good story. Could kill him. Back in the day when you'd be looking for drums and you sort of go around calling people, like you talk to some guy, right? Oh, hey, yeah, I've been collecting for a while. Yeah, well, you should talk to Billy Van Rechtenpip. Well, here's his number. Hi, Billy Van Rechtenpip. Hi, blah, 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 blah. You should talk to Ernie Van Rechtenkrack. And, oh, hey, Ernie. And you got to know a lot of people that way, right? There was this guy named Lou. He lived on the south side. And his voice, he'd be like, yeah, he had this voice like that. Well, there was a bunch of Rogers stuff I saw. And, he should do, if he's still alive, he should do ASMR videos on frickin' YouTube because he'd rake in the cash. I'd be talking to this guy on the phone. He'd be like, yeah, well, that was it. And I'd be like, Terry, oh, yeah, hey. I swear to God. Anyway, so he says to me, he's like, the last time I was at Midwest Percussion, there was one of those deep dish Rogers snare drums. It was, I think it was Green Sparkle. I'm like, yeah? He's like, yeah, it had a case. They wanted, I think like $200 for it. I was like, great, well, thanks. Click. Call up Midwest Percussion. At that time, I can't remember if they were on 95th Street or down on Harlow. And I call and the guy's like, hello. I'm like, hey, do you guys have a Rogers Dynasonic in there, a Green Sparkle Dynasonic? Yeah, man. Hang on a second. Yeah. Hey, Chuck. Where's that Dynasonic? Oh, a friend of mine bought it. Oh, sorry, buddy. It's not here. I'm like, oh, somebody bought it? He's like, yeah. I'm like, who bought it? He's like, a guy named your name here, who I knew. And I thought to myself, I'm like, it's like a day before someone I knew, one of my competitors, went in there and snatched this 6.5. I have a photograph, a video somewhere. A 6.5 by 14, like 1965, Rogers Dynasonic, Green Sparkle. Now these things really, these Dynasonics pulled Rogers out of the vintage drum basement prices. This thing ended up going for it was purchased for $200, I think, with the case. I think even the top head, if I remember the fella that ended up getting hit, it had almost never been played. There was a head on the top that had been printed with the directions, I think, how to install the. So anyway, the rich get richer. Anyway, but listen, I'm sorry, I don't know how that video frickin' got cut off, man. I didn't even realize it. And I got a couple comments, everyone's like, yeah, waiting for part 2. I'm like, I don't know, part 2? And then I looked, and I was like, oh, man. So my friend Guy Dutton in England pointed out to me. So anyway, hopefully this one is sort of it's the end. So here we are at the end of the video. I'm sure there's other stories. It's been 20 years. I just don't remember, But thank you for watching my videos. Again, if you want to collect and find old drums, do that. There's still a lot of them out there, especially in the Wisconsin neck of the woods. Hang on. Again, NA, baby. I don't frown on anybody drinking. Just not for me. But if you do drink non-alcoholic beers, Old Milwaukee NA is the way to go. It's darn tootin' tasty. No, it actually really is. It tastes just like a beer. Anyway, so thank you for watching my videos. More on the way. In that drum video I put of me in the studio, I'm recording some tunes. And I went in to track some drums. I preferably do like to play with the. Anyway, it's a long check. There'll be more of those coming, but I got some tunes I'm putting together. So I really appreciate you watching my videos. Subscribe if you haven't. Here we are chugging along. It's February. Happy Groundhog Day tomorrow. Hopefully we'll just have a few more weeks of winter. Again, thank you for watching my videos. Okay? I do appreciate it. Bye.